Lindsay mentioned the incident that Florin experienced happened just days after the riots in Ballymena, which the PSNI described as racist thuggery. Let's speak to the TV MLA, Timothy Gaston, who represents the area. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you have concerns about what we're seeing and what Florin is claiming here, that there is this spread of anti-Roma sentiment?
Let me be very clear. I take every opportunity to condemn violence, to take every opportunity to condemn racism. And I have been very vocal on the back of what we have seen in Ballymena. But as Lindsay described it as the other side of the coin, local people living around in Clonavon and Ballymena have experienced a very, very different side to the Roma community than that being portrayed on the programme here this morning. Take Clonavon, for example. What I'm being told, what I have witnessed over the years, a mass demographic change, quick and rapid. And in that comes with it, within the Roma community, criminal gangs. What we have in Ballymena, or what we had, should I say, in Ballymena, was there was houses used for prostitution, there was houses used for drugs. And let's be very clear. Yes, I'm in your programme here this morning, but I would have liked to have seen somebody coming on, or the BBC inviting somebody on that has experienced the other side of the Roma community. This has been going on for potentially 10 years.
I think, though, it's important to say, it's not important to say that there are individuals, and I think Lindsay actually, to be fair, acknowledged and said that, as you mentioned there, and talked about the problems that exist within some sections of a community. But is it not a small number of people? And isn't there a danger that that kind of rhetoric starts to tar entire communities and leads to incidents like the one that we're talking about this morning?
You've labelled that as rhetoric. That's fact. What I'm dealing with here this morning, Chris, and that does nothing to address the issues by labelling anybody, whether it's rhetoric, whether it's racist, whether it's far right that comes from the BBC. We have to look at the issues that have led to this. Violence is wrong. I can't be clear on that. What this man has experienced is wrong. It's over to the police to deal with that. But what I'm on here this morning, I've been invited onto your show this morning, is to speak up for the communities that have seen firsthand the culture the Roma have brought with them, and the difficulties that has led. And it's more than just rubbish. It's more than ASB. What I've experienced, what my electorate has experienced, is a culture that the Roma community don't integrate locally. And that has been something that the people in Ballymena have tried to change over the years.
But hang on a sec now, because when you talk about the idea that people are involved in prostitution, when you talk about the idea that people are involved in drug dealing, you could say that happens within the Protestant community, the Catholic community, whatever you want. Of course that happens. Yeah, but the point is you wouldn't come on and condemn that entire community as a result of what a small number of people are doing.
But taking Clonavon and Ballymena, for example, I believe that this has been a wider problem that has existed within the Roma community, where you have people standing in corners.
Well, hang on. If you talk about drug dealing, is that not something you experience wider in the Loyalist community, for example? Is that something that you would say?
That happens in all communities.
I know, but is that something you'd specifically say?
I'm happy to point out and say that that's wrong, and drug dealers need to be rooted out regardless of what community they come from. But I'm putting across to you the experience of the people in Ballymena, of the Roma community. The problem is a culture that they don't want to integrate, and I have tried to point out to you here this morning that local people in Ballymena have tried to reach out to bring people in. Yes, there may well be, and there is, some people that have, but the vast majority of the Roma in Ballymena haven't integrated, and that's where a lot of these problems has come from. This isn't racist by any stretch of the imagination.
There has been a slight concern, though, with the TUV.
This is an example of two cultures, a culture coming in, not wanting to mix with the local people.
There has been a slight concern, though, with the TUV, in that if you take a look at what you and your leader, Jim Allister, were saying at the time of the Ballymena riots taking place, you were condemning attacks on other ethnicities and then separating the Roma community as being the source of much of the tension in Ballymena.
Sorry, Chris, I condemn all violence.
Well,
I've been very clear in that.
I know, but
I don't think. No, I'm not accepting that at all.
Have a quick listen to what Jim Allister said, because this is what he said to us in the days after the violence and rioting in Ballymena.
In respect of Filipinos who come to this country to work, many of them work in right bus to contribute to society, and to see a family such as that picked upon is totally revolting and wrong. But the point I'm making is this, that violence, wherever it comes from, is wrong. But the context of this situation needs to be addressed, and the context is that there has been unhindered migration, particularly from the Republic, of people of Roma extraction into Ballymena, and that has been building tensions for years.
So if you listen to Jim Allister there, what he's saying is that it is completely wrong that a family is picked upon in such a way from a Filipino background, but then you have to give context to the violence that occurred in the case of Roma.
Well, the interview or the clip I heard was Jim saying that all violence is wrong.
And he did say that. That's completely true. But he also then said, but you have to put this into context.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm on your show trying to explain this morning and give that voice to the context of what people have experienced in Ballymena. I'll give you an example. We were down
why not just condemn the violence rather than anything else? That's the important thing.
No problem with that. No problem with that. But if you continue to bury your head in the sand and let these issues fester, you result in what happened in Ballymena. So giving you context, so we done a podcast with BBC Jim and myself a couple of weeks ago, walking through the area. I was speaking to a local lady who said that prior to the Ballymena incident, the riots, would not park her car. She works in the area, would not park her car in Glenavan simply because she didn't feel safe. She thought the car would be stolen. It wouldn't be there when she would come back. She experienced wolf whistling. She experienced, different forms of intimidation since the Ballymena riots. That lady now parks round the corner in Glenavan. So we're talking about ending violence against women and girls. There's a clear issue with that Glenavan, or there was a clear issue with that Glenavan area. And where does that stem from? That lady didn't feel safe to park her car or walk through that area because
there can be perception, though, and the concern is that sometimes that perception is reinforced by some people saying things about communities and broad brush regarding of what happens within communities that doesn't always reflect individuals. I did want to ask you about...
It's a narrative, Chris. It's a narrative you're trying to put across. Both Jim and myself have been very clear that the attacks in the Roma have been wrong. All violence is wrong.
Okay.
You're trying to create a narrative here that doesn't exist. I'm trying to put
I'm only asking
the context.
Questions.
I'm trying to put to you the context of why this has happened in Ballymena. And that's what I've been invited on to your show to do this morning.
I wanted to ask you about the social media videos that you may have seen from TikTok, which shows groups of men walking the streets in East Belfast. And I appreciate it's not your area. And in some cases, we've had these confrontations from people from ethnic minority backgrounds. And this is one of the videos that's been getting a lot of attention.
Have you got any documentations? Prove to me who you are. So if anything goes wrong, I can come back to you. Let me see the pictures in your phone. What sort of pictures you have? Any pictures of kids? Stop flicking. Oh, your phone died? Yeah, you got off lately. No. Listen. Come on, head home. Where you live? Donegal Road? Yeah. Okay, head home. Let's go.
What do you make of those kind of videos? Are those men wrong to be walking the streets and asking questions of individuals?
As you say, Chris, I'm in LA for Northampton. I'm not over the detail of what's happening in Belfast.
You're aware of what's happening, and you are a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly, so it's a perfectly fair to ask you, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm setting out here that I'm not best placed to answer that. But in saying that, my first initial thought is, why have these people felt the need to have to take to the streets to do this? Is it wrong? Absolutely. But why has this community felt the need that they've had to take to the streets to protect the streets? Where are the police? Where are the police patrolling these areas?
Well, there's no
Is
suggestion.
this an
There's no
area like
suggestion the police
Glenormand?
are. There's no suggestion that the police aren't patrolling these areas. These individuals, we don't know why that they're doing it, but they feel that they are out wanting to protect their streets. But again, there is a danger, isn't there? That there's a perception of individuals and they're approaching people because of the colour of their skin, and that in itself is a concern, isn't it? Is that not? Is
wrong. Nobody should be approached because.
Do you think that's racist?
But people have an issue, and this is where, when context is important. That there's a feeling within working class communities, both unionist and nationalist communities, that the demographic change that they have seen, they have never been consulted upon about mass amounts of people coming into their area, changing the face of their area. And my goodness, it's starting to spell out where obviously they've lost faith in the police to tackle the issues that they're experiencing in their area.
Can I ask you then about Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice and his comments? You might have seen that he called for members of the public to set up patrols near hotels housing asylum seekers in England. Is that wrong? Is that wrong that he says? And I'm just aware, I'm not sure of the current link between the TUV and Reform UK. You did have an electoral pact at one stage, or a kind of electoral link-up. But is he wrong in what he said there?
But there's obviously clear issues where there's been a breakdown of confidence with the local police to deal with issues. And that, to me, is a big part of this picture here that people seem to be setting to the side. But, the BBC and other mainstream media like to label things and, name call essentially. But where's the questions to the police and all of this that obviously communities have lost confidence in them? Going back to Ballymena, and Glenormand was on the doorstep of the police station and it was turned into a ghetto. All this. I'll
tell you what. We'll invite the police onto the.
And they seem to be turning a blind eye, or they didn't have the resources to deal with it.
I'll tell you what, we'll invite. Okay, but I'll tell you what, we'll invite the police onto the programme tomorrow. We will give them the opportunity to come on and to address what you say is a lack of confidence in them. But let me ask that question one more time, because it's Richard Tice who's been saying this, and it goes to this question of whether or not there should be patrols in the streets. Are you condemning these kind of like groups setting themselves up as some kind of defenders of the streets? Do you condemn that activity? Is that wrong?
Well, I don't know the specific details, but if it's in the guise of like a neighbourhood watch, I have absolutely no problem with people looking after their area. But it goes back to my point of there's ways and means of doing that. What we've seen in Belfast and the videos that you've shown, I would be deeply concerned about. But when it comes to England and what Mr. Tice has said, I see no problem with what he has said. And it's obvious there's concerns around the hotels. And my big question is, well, where's the police to give confidence to a community where people have been coming in on small boats and been housed in hotels, everything paid for them, people living in the local area, struggling to get past with the cost of living. And my goodness, they have obviously lost all confidence in the police, and quite frankly, how the police have dealt with the Ballymena issue over the years, I can understand why.
Okay,